Here. All right. So with that, before we get started, my name is Courtney. I will be guiding this session. I'm glad that you're all here. When we go through this, I'm happy to share the slides. To anyone that's registered, I have your email so I can send you the slides after. Any additional information that maybe folks ask about or need after the fact, I'm happy to do that. With that, we will go ahead and get started. If you have any questions as we go, there's a little Q&A button. You can also drop in the chat. You can send me a direct message if you don't want anyone to see the question, but I'll get to all the questions and we'll go ahead and get into the presentation. All right. So as we get started here, I just want to first welcome you in. Thank you for everyone and your patience. I had a crazy family emergency last time we were scheduled to meet. So I'm hoping that this gives more people time to engage in this space as well. We'll hop into a few things. We'll do an overview of not only thinking about the Eugene, University of Oregon, big picture stuff, but we'll also zone in on the Indigenous Race and Ethnic Studies kind of program in general, our department, as well as the application process, the program of study. More importantly, I think the thing that we don't talk about enough when we think about graduate admissions is funding, the real kind of decision-making process of if grad school feels feasible and real. And so one of our big goals as a department, our own politic and our own personal experience as graduate students, many of us first-generation graduate students in our department, is to share as much information as we can about the logistics of grad school, the process of grad school, and hopefully demystify any questions that you have in this space. Really quickly, a little bit about me. My name is Dr. Courtney Cox. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an assistant professor here in IRES. I'm also the director of graduate studies. You'll also hear that reference as DGS. And so part of my responsibility as DGS of the department is not only to do this kind of admission cycle, heavy lift kind of thing of getting all of you amazing students into the program, but also supporting you along your journey through this program, whether it's getting through first year, understanding what is grad school about, what is academia about, but also getting you through your qualifying exams and to those amazing dissertation projects and to graduation. So I really love that process. My background is actually in communication. My undergrad, my master's degrees are in journalism. My PhD is in communication from the University of Southern California at Annenberg, where I graduated in 2019. So not too long ago, I was a graduate student. And I'm largely interested in issues of labor and technology within sport and sports media that guides a lot of my work. I'm happy to share more if there are folks that are interested in any kind of parallels with media studies, labor, technology stuff in general, or sports studies. Happy to answer any of those questions, but I'm also happy to connect you with any of our faculty that may have research interests that are better aligned with yours. So in Eugene, you will see, this is a very scenic, very picturesque kind of scene set of Eugene. I want to start big picture about where we find ourselves in this space. The University of Oregon is located on Kalapuya Ilihi, the traditional indigenous homeland of the Kalapuya people. It is the second most populous city in Oregon. It's about 2 hours south of Portland, if you know where Portland, Oregon is, affectionately known as Tracktown, USA, known for an incredible Saturday market, which is open every Saturday from April through November. And I only bring the Saturday market up. It's the very first one. This is kind of the pride of Eugene. Founded in 1970, the first Saturday market in the United States. It's adjacent to the Lane County Farmers Market in downtown Eugene. So it's kind of like the most poppin' spot on a Saturday morning. And the only rule is all vendors must create or grow their own products. And so it's a really great way to kind of showcase where we are in terms of space and place and really support a lot of the local vendors within this space. And so Saturday market's kind of a scene I love to talk about. Now, in terms of the university in general, this is a shot of the Herb Memorial Union, the EMU, as we affectionately refer to it, which is kind of the heartbeat of campus, not too far, maybe a 5 to 7 minute walk from where our offices are in IRES, and is really kind of this hub, this incredible space that I wanted to showcase here. The University of Oregon opened in 1876, and one of the most important things that you'll constantly hear me mention and reference as DGS and also as a labor scholar is really emphasizing GTFF, which is the University of Oregon Graduate Teaching Fellows Federation. GTFF was established in 1976 to represent graduate student workers. It's one of the oldest graduate student unions in the United States. Not surprisingly, the U of O administration objected to the establishment of the union, citing that graduate workers were, quote, students, not employees. And the Oregon Employment Relations Board ruled in favor of graduate students and supported their right to organize. And so one of the things that's important at the U of O, I'll mention, especially in a particularly fraught moment for labor, is that here at the U of O, not only do we have our graduate students that are unionized through GTFF, we have our faculty and our staff that are also unionized, as well as our undergraduate employees who recently became unionized over the past 12 months. So we are a very pro-union campus in that sense, and also helps us with a lot of organizing and support across those spaces. It's something I don't take lightly, and really want to mention and can talk more about as we round out and talk about funding. We're also, I must say, as a sports scholar, part of the Big Ten Conference as of this year, which from both an athletic and an academic standpoint opens up a lot of new avenues that I think folks are really thinking through in this moment. Related to that, we operate on a quarter system, a 10-week system. So if you're used to semester, 10 weeks will fly by. It is a lot going on in that space. So happy to think through what quarter system looks like at the graduate level, if you have any questions about that. Here's a photo of Alder Building. This is the building where both Indigenous Race and Ethnic Studies, as well as creative writing, call home. It's also, if you know anything about Eugene, Oregon, along what we call Sorority Row, which is an interesting kind of ethnographic space come rush season. All right, IRES is within the College of Arts and Sciences. We have 12 core faculty in this department and 26 affiliate graduate faculty that represent departments across the university. That's really important for us because we kind of see both the strength in number in terms of thinking about like-minded scholars across campus with very different research profiles that may really bolster and support students in their own research along the way. So both within our core and affiliate faculty, we have a range of both humanities, social sciences, the arts kind of represented. And then within that, we house an undergraduate program, a major in ethnic studies, as well as several minors, including Native and Indigenous studies, Latinx studies, Black studies as minors. We host within our graduate program, obviously the PhD program, that's why we're here, as well as a graduate certificate that brings in grad students from across campus. We also have an ethics studies minor as well. So with that, that's kind of what we do over there in Alder. I want to get to the PhD in Indigenous Race and Ethnic Studies. And so one of the things I think might be helpful is to give you not only an overview of the application process, give you a chance to think through some questions that you may have about your application as it stands, as well as what the program looks like as a whole that might help you think about how you want to frame your own work and your own experience here. All right. With that, I want to double check and make sure there aren't any questions along the way. I will take, this is really great. Okay, Rodlin, I'll take this question right after, Rodlin May, after we get to that, because I think that's a really important question to think about process. So as soon as we get to program of study, I'm definitely getting to this question about graduate faculty as primary advisor. All right, so applications are due December 1st, 2024. And within that, there's a statement of purpose that's required, a CV or a resume. We have no preference, either are fine. 3 recommenders, so 3 folks that will write you a letter of recommendation. A writing sample, we ask that it's double spaced and less than 35 pages. And then your transcripts, we do accept unofficial transcripts. As I know, different programs, different places, official transcripts can sometimes be a bit tricky. And most importantly to know, we don't require or consider the GRE for admissions. There's so much information out there about standardized testing that I'm sure makes sense in terms of alignment with our practice and politic within ethnic studies. Okay, so the big thing that I want to point out here, 2 of the most important things, the statement of purpose that you send should really help us identify a few different questions. Why is the University of Oregon the place that you need to be to do the research that you want and to develop your own kind of pedagogy and research practice? Why Indigenous race and ethnic studies? That's a big question. Why ethnic studies versus, I don't know, sociology, history, English, all these other fantastic departments you could be applying to? That's something we should feel like at the end of your statement of purpose, we could answer. Why ethnic studies more broadly? So the difference between our department and the larger project of ethnic studies, showing you have that at least kind of baseline knowledge of what ethnic studies means, both in maybe your previous experience, the stuff that you're reading, the folks that you cite and engage with in your own work. Thinking about what you'll study and who you'll work with. So these two kind of questions in terms of helping us understand what are you really interested in? And these are not things that are legally binding. We won't go back before you graduate and make sure that you actually studied, researched, and wrote about what you said, but giving us a really like strong landscape of the questions that you're interested in, how you engage with them, the scholars that you currently are learning from and with, and who you think would best support your work at the U of O within IRES. So we should be able to understand those 5 things: why the U of O, why IRES, why ethnic studies, what you'll study, and who you'll work with, as an understanding across that space. Okay, so that's the most important thing in terms of statement of purpose. The second most important document I want to point to is your writing sample. One of the things that a lot of folks ask about in terms of a writing sample is, what's the right thing to send? Should I send something that's newer, that's really speaking to where I am in the work right now, or what I would study at the U of O? Or should I send something tried and true, something that you've published already, or maybe a part of your master's thesis? And so what I always recommend for folks is they send something really polished. Even if your work has completely left that space, a really strong writing sample, even if it's not even in the same field or understanding, knowing what your writing looks and feels like is what's most important to us. So when you decide that writing sample, it should be something that's gone through a couple of revisions, that feels really strong. You may have really exciting work that's newer and fresher and maybe a little rougher. I don't think that's the best writing sample because it's not reflective of the potential, I think, of the work. So don't worry if it's not perfectly aligned with what you're thinking about. We don't look for any kind of tension between the statement of purpose and the writing sample. It's really to get a sense of what your writing is like in this moment. Okay. With that, I will go through the question first here, and then we'll get into program of study. So Rodlin May asked, are you able to have an affiliate graduate faculty as your primary advisor? Reached out to Dr. Balogun, and she said that she was accepting grad students, but her home departments are not in IRES. Okay, so I'm gonna dissect a couple. This is a really good question. So when you're moving through this process and you're saying, these are the folks I wanna work with, I think it's fantastic. I think you could definitely say, these are affiliate faculty within IRES that I know I'd wanna work with. That shows you've done the research, you know who's here, you connected with those folks. I think that's a great point. However, you need one of those 12 core faculty to actually be your primary advisor, right? So your primary advisor has to be housed within the core IRES faculty, and then you can build your qualifying exams committee as well as your dissertation committee using those affiliate faculty. So primary advisor / your dissertation chair needs to be housed within the core faculty, but mentioning even in your application, your statement of purpose, that there are other folks that are at the U of O that you're interested in working with, that is perfectly acceptable and really helpful for us to know how you're thinking through your research. Does that help? Okay, great. Do folks have any other questions about application? I can handle that here, or we can wait until the end. I want to give that space if folks want to have any other questions related to that. Okay, cool. All right. So in terms of the program of study, you get to the U of O, you're in IRES. The main things that we do in terms of coursework, we have 2 years of coursework, 18 credits of which are within the core courses, which I'll go over in a second, 20 credits in substantive seminar courses, 25 credits in elective seminars, and 15 credits of individual research or reading. So that's kind of making a list with an individual faculty member, our core or affiliate faculty, and reading with them, agreeing to the list and agreeing to some kind of deliverable alongside that. The other thing that you might have along the way is thinking about, for example, you might have your dissertation credits, things of that nature, that are also part of your individual research credits. So those credits are the ones that fly by the fastest. Those aren't classes per se, but individual research or readings. For those that come into the program with a master's degree from another program, you would send over the syllabi, your transcript, the information I would need to evaluate the courses that could transfer towards the PhD. And those courses would transfer towards those 25 credits in elective seminars. Okay, so the 18 credits in ES Core, 20 credits in substantive, those you'll take in-house within IRES, but you can use a certain number of credits depending on how, I won't say the number of courses because credits are counted differently at different institutions, but you can submit as many syllabi as you think are appropriate from your program of study elsewhere, and we'll evaluate them together and let you know how many credits they'll count for. So required course seminar are the ES 614 colloquium. We call that, the shorthand is professional development, but one of the things that you'll do is in your very first year in the program, you'll have one credit course each term, fall, winter, and spring. Again, we're on those 10-week quarters. And you will meet with the DGS, that's me, each week for about an hour and 20 minutes. And we'll go through this basic kind of understanding of what is grad school, how do I prepare for things like abstracts, conferences, applying for journals, what are the journals that I should even be reading and thinking through. So all the questions that are kind of assumed that people know will be part of grad school. We kind of want to demystify the entire process. And within that, we also have something called Meet the Faculty that allows you to have FaceTime with every single core faculty member in the department, and a few of our affiliate that really get involved in the program. And so with that, you kind of get time to meet everyone, get a sense of who they are, what they're about, hear about their own graduate school experience, kind of what they wish they had known, kind of the strengths and weaknesses of their own departments and previous kind of degree eras. And so we have a really great time talking to folks and thinking through those things together. So again, fall, winter, spring, it's a weekly check-in, weekly FaceTime with the DGS and the other faculty members in the department, and a chance to really dig into certain things like time management, developing a writing schedule, all of these things that are just, again, assumed. And for me, as someone who didn't have parents with PhDs, it's really helpful to just kind of understand what grad school is, lay the groundwork, and feel really prepared by the end of first year of knowing what's available on campus, what the fields are kind of doing, what conferences you might want to attend in the future, and how to apply for money. These are all things that we kind of think through together. So the colloquium isn't like an actual reading assignment kind of situation, but rather a weekly kind of built-in check-in with deliverables that you'll do that are really working towards professionalization within the field. ES 617, Genealogies of Ethnic Studies, you'll take in the fall of year one. It's a 5-credit course, classic seminar. ES 618, Theoretical Foundations, is a winter of year one, another 5-credit course. And then you have ES 619, Interdisciplinary Research Methodologies. And so that's in the spring of year one. So you have these 4 courses that are knocked out in that very first year. We call those our core seminar. Outside of these, you can take an elective outside, whether it's inside of ethnic studies or across campus. But those are the core ones that are built in, and spots are held just for our IRES PhD students. Substantive seminar courses can be taken in tandem with those first years when available. And if not, a lot of students end up taking these second year. One example, ES 620, Race, Space, and Power, sometimes is offered the exact same year as those core classes, so folks can knock those out together. ES 621, Cultural Production, really classic introduction to cultural studies, is typically taught second year. ES 622, Resistance and Dissent, can be taught either year. ES 623, Race and Sexuality, is typically a second year course. So these are required courses that, again, you'll take in sequence together as a cohort. And then the elective seminars, 25 credits, are just graduate level courses at the 500 or 600 level taught by graduate faculty members, either core or affiliate. So again, thinking about our folks that are all across campus in philosophy and sociology, in art history, all these different spaces, we offer a long list of courses each term that you can choose from at the 500 or 600 level. And then there are a lot of other courses. Let's say you do a certificate somewhere else on campus. There's many ways that we can also get those to count as your elective seminars, even if they aren't taught by affiliate faculty members. Okay. So once you do all of that good stuff, year one and year two, year three is about your qualifying exams and advancing to candidacy. There are three pieces to your qualifying exams. The first is a field paper. We typically also will call this a subfield paper. So really identifying where you place your work in the field, how you identify as a scholar, the engagement with the scholarship and literature that you are really digging into that will help animate your dissertation. So that's about a 30-page paper. The syllabus, you design a syllabus for a course you would love to teach. And with that, you write an analytical paper that's about 15 pages that really establishes why you made the decisions in your syllabus. This is really important, especially for those looking to go on the job market for tenure track jobs or even non-tenure track jobs, of thinking about having a syllabus already ready to go that's really preparing you to go out and teach after this. And think about your own relationship to pedagogy. And then finally, the preliminary dissertation prospectus. It's not the final one, but we want to see a draft by the spring term of your third year of what you would like to do for your fourth and fifth year in terms of your dissertation. Okay, now once you've successfully completed all three of these pieces in your third year, you advance to candidacy. You are called a PhD candidate at that point. You receive a master's degree. And then in the final 2 years, you're working on that dissertation. And by the end of fall term of your fourth year, you'll do an oral defense of your dissertation prospectus, and then hop into some of those dissertation credits. And upon completion, once you've written that dissertation, your committee has approved it, you have a successful oral dissertation defense, and then you make any necessary changes and file that in a dream world at the end of year 5. Okay, I want to stop down for a second and see if folks have any questions about the program of study, anything that's helpful, useful. I'm happy to hop in on that front to answer questions now that we kind of have a little bit of the lay of this land. Ooh, great question. Will ES 614 also prepare the cohort for teaching assistantships? I love this question. So part of that, we'll talk about the graduate package next. Part of what you will also do while you're here at the U of O is you'll be a graduate employee, right? Remember GTFF. You will have teaching or research assistantships across your 5 years of support. There are other avenues of support that you can think about that enable you to get out of that teaching if you need to, for example, travel to conduct research. We have a really vibrant setup called Pivot that thinks about things like dissertation fellowships, things like that, that allow you to also do things like bank a year. But your question about ES 614, we have a specific sequences for fall, winter, and spring that are really about training folks in terms of teaching. So you don't have to come in with any TA experience. We will definitely help. There's TA training that's done through the grad division, right, at the university level. And then we do our own training and support for graduate students that are teaching. We have a couple of different types of teaching assistantships. One is just a grader, where you are going in and grading the course, versus a discussion section leader where you're actually teaching your own standalone discussion sections to go with our big ES 101 Intro to Ethnic Studies course. So ES 614 will absolutely spend some time working on that. And typically as I teach it, we spend a lot of time asking folks, like, what is it that you need? What do you feel like most unprepared? And some of it is you don't really know what you need in terms of help with TAing until you do it. And you're like, how do you do this? Or how do you navigate this situation? So we typically have time every week when we meet where we kind of break down what's going on in terms of people's courses, what's going on in terms of the TA assignments, where can we help? Are there sticky situations you might have questions about? How do I handle this? And so we're here for you on that front, and that's absolutely part of 614. So thank you for that question. Another question here, could you talk a little bit more about the rhythm cadence of the quarter system? Yes, I went through all of my school through semester system. So I was very new to quarter system. I think it flies by. My first mistakes in teaching were really about trying to smush 16 weeks into 10 weeks. I know students hated me for that. And then eventually realizing there are limits to what you can really do into compressing and trying to fit that in. So 10 weeks flies by. Obviously week 4 through 6, heading into midterms and out of it. If you're taking midterms and you're also grading midterms, that's a really hectic time for folks for sure. I find that with fall, one of the things that quarter system does in terms of rhythm or cadence I think about is we start almost in October. I mean, sometimes we do start in October. Sometimes it's like the last couple of days of September. So your summer feels really vibrant in that way. Fall is when it feels good to be on quarter system. The weather is perfect when you're coming back. And you make it through October and you realize, oh, by the time we get to mid-November, we're like done. It starts to really fly. So thinking about right now where we situate ourselves, we're heading into November and we're in week 5 right now. And so again, thinking about how it feels in this moment to be at the midway point in November. And then by the time we get to kind of in this kind of fall break, Thanksgiving era, you come back and it's like week 10, right? And then you have finals week. And so that fall seems to fly by. Let me tell you about spring though, because all of your semester friends will be done in mid-May and you realize you still have 4 weeks left. And that's a little tough. So in winter term, we come in really early January, and we go kind of through mid-March, is where we're kind of knocking out finals of winter term. So we have spring break for a week and we come back and we have all new classes. So one of the things that I find is that you're in this kind of mad dash towards spring break, but unlike semester, you will never have work to do over spring break. As faculty, I have to put grades in during spring break, but I think as a student, it works out really well where you don't have anything looming over you. You have a full set of courses that are starting after, whether you're thinking about yourself in terms of being a GE, a graduate employee, or as a student, you really have a clean break where you have spring break and you come back to all new courses in late March going into early April. And then our classes we're doing graduation around Father's Day weekend. And so that mid-June, you're really pushing through. But the weather's also getting a lot better, right? So winter term, you have the classic P&W grayness happening. And then we push through that spring term. And so having mid-June till almost October off feels great because when all of your semester friends come back in August for class and you realize you have so much amazing time and amazing summer left, it kind of makes up for it. But the winter to spring turnover is sometimes a little difficult, I think, to adjust to your first couple of years. That's a lot of detail. I hope it's helpful and useful. But that's kind of how I see quarter system kind of moving and operating. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about a little more about that work situation. So graduate package offerings, 5 years of funding are attached in your offer letter, includes tuition waivers, includes health insurance, includes a stipend. One of the things that we have in terms of that guaranteed 5-year funding, which not every program has, we also have opportunities to think about extra assistance on top of that that can be really important. And then we also have our own academic residential community. These are kind of well known, we call them ARCs, kind of well known on the side of undergrads, but we have our own for our PhD students, and it's really designed to secure funding and housing for our grad students. And so for us, building it into our package of an academic residential community is a way to make sure that if you need somewhere to stay, you have an affordable place to stay on campus in grad housing. And so you pay for the grad housing, but it's a spot that's safe for you versus having to hop on a waiting list. And so when you sign your offer letter, we then will ask you if you want to stay in the academic residential community. And it's really great because there's other PhD students across the other cohorts that also live in grad housing within the academic residential community. So you kind of have a crew, which is really great. And we also have PhD students that stay off campus as well. So it's whatever feels good and right in your world. And as mentioned, you have your graduate employment. That's kind of what sustains the 5 years of funding there, as any of these jobs, teaching assistant, discussion section leader, grader, administrative GE-ships are typically done through centers, for example, the Center for the Study of Women in Society, or CSWS, is one such place. There's also the New Media and Culture certificate that also tends to have administrative GEs. And administrative is a broad term, but a lot of times it's folks that are helping to put on events for a center or a crew. And then you have a research assistant, which is typically when you're working directly with a professor who's funded through a grant, who can then pay for you to be their research assistant and do work. And so that also is a great way to support your own kind of research portfolio. I've seen some really fantastic ones folks have been able to tap into. So sometimes those are directly like an advisor will choose their advisee. Sometimes it's based on need. Sometimes they're able to hire multiple folks. I've seen all of these combinations. So I want to think about that as that. We've also had administrative GE-ships within IRES. So thinking about GEs that help us, for example, bringing in a new cohort, doing all the event planning, helping to get folks on their feet here. Okay. Rodlin May, I know that you were out for a second when I was going through the rhythm cadence of quarter system. Happy to go through any of that stuff if you missed it. But I want to connect it to these pieces here with graduate funding. Okay. So this is a grid that is available. The link is at the bottom. The entire collective bargaining agreement between GTFF and the University of Oregon is available online. You can just search U of O, GTFF, CBA, but there's also this link. There's a lot of information about graduate employee protections, but I just thought the funding piece was important so you have a sense of what we're looking at. So the very top line here, 9-month annual base rate, we see this, we'll be going into September 2025 for the next cohort. That is the base rate that everyone in the university that has a graduate employees must hit for their annual, right? You can see the 1 month there. And so one of the things that you'll see here, if you'll scroll down to gross monthly salary, 0.45 FTE, so the third from the bottom, or 0.49 FTE, or 0.40. So those chunks, let's see if I can write in here, 0.40, 0.45, 0.49 are the most common ones handed out to graduate employees, and that's per term. So the difference between 0.45, for example, is if you're teaching a discussion section, there's more work, you're teaching that. So it's a little higher up. You can see this would be the monthly, the gross monthly versus a 0.40. And so we have a system where we have graduate employees list their preferences for the next year. So we will do that in the spring term here for the following 2025-2026 year. People will put in their first, second, third choices in terms of what classes they'd like the GE for fall, winter, and spring. We'll ask faculty to do the same. We do a kind of matchmaking system here. And last year, we were able to get everyone either their first or second choice. So I feel really proud about that. And then that aligns with these kind of numbers here. Since our program has started, there's been a number of other additional funding opportunities we've had where we've been able to pay all of our students above these requirements. And it's something that I hope that we continue to be able to do. And so part of it is these are the standards that the university has. But for us, we're always trying to think about whether it's establishing the academic residential community or also thinking about other ways to find awards on campus or within our own funding. We've been trying to find ways to support students, both in terms of their research and just in terms of living. Like, how can we give folks money just to pay bills? Because that's real too. Okay, with that, I want to open it up for questions. If there's anything I went a little too fast on, anything you have questions about, I am more than happy to circle back to anything. But for now, I'm going to just stop sharing just so I can see folks a little bit better and see our chat here. So let me know if you have any questions, anything I can answer, anything that feels kind of confusing or missing from application process as you've seen it. You can unmute yourself. You can also type in the chat, whatever feels best to you. Ooh, is there summer funding or assistance or just the 9-month salary? Yes, great question. Okay, so there's a couple different things. I mentioned the ways that we top off like students in terms of giving them additional funding. That's one way that we do it. I will say that we are on the 9-month. Your health insurance is not, though. Let's be clear. As well as, let's say you want to take a class or do an independent study with a professor, we have accommodations to make sure you don't have to pay for summer tuition. We also have summer GE-ships. So as a professor, I'm also on a 9-month salary, and so I just want to put that out there. So I know summer can be a move. We have summer courses we teach, and some of those courses get GE-ships. So you can apply for a GE-ship for extra money for the summer. Yeah, so it's 9 months, but your health insurance tuition waivers are not. Does that help? Okay. In the graduate application portal, can you expand on what will fit in the portfolio section? Is it required? Okay. Portfolio section not required. So the things that I listed, that statement of purpose, CV, writing sample, letter of recs. That stuff is the required stuff, right? Transcripts. The portfolio section, we really want to think expansively because if you look at our department, we have folks writing children's books and making movies and doing really cool stuff. And we also want to honor that in terms of the kinds of students that are coming in. So if you're a poet and you're like, that's not my writing sample, but that's something else that kind of shows the range of who I am and the kind of work that I do. If you're an artist and you're like, I'm going to study art in some kind of way, like that's something that you can also kind of showcase in that way. So you don't have, nothing in the portfolio is required. Only the stuff that I listed before are the core things that are required. So if you have other, this is like this kind of other holding pattern. If you have something else that you'd like to have space for, that is there for you. Not required, just a way. If there's anything else we're missing, anything else we should really understand about you, that's there. But it is an optional thing, just a way for us to kind of create a little bucket for anything else. These are great questions. What else? Any questions about advising, advisors? I love the question about primary advisors. We allow students to pick their advisor. We establish a first year mentor. So when you are going through the application process and you are identifying someone you would want to work with, right? And you're saying, I want to work with Dr. Cox on XYZ. You can establish that knowing that when we go into our meeting to discuss, they'll ask me like, hey, is this a project you would support, right? So that's one of the questions we kind of think about in terms of matching there. But when we establish a first year mentor for you, we're thinking about someone that we think will be great for your work and someone that is enthusiastically signed on to work with you. But you take a couple of classes with folks across the department and you say, hey, this person's great, but this other person feels like my ideal advisor. Or you say, hey, my first year mentor is actually the perfect advisor for me. At the end of year one, you sign a form, you have your advisor sign the form so they know that they're your advisor, and that's how it goes. There's no harm, no foul if you establish someone different than your first year mentor as your advisor. But we want you to take that full year to kind of get to know multiple folks, do the meet the faculty, get a good sense of the department, and then make a decision on who feels right to you. And so we do first year mentor, you choose your advisor, we don't assign you one. And so we go through that process just to make sure that you're with someone that really works and really can support your work. And so I know that's something kind of unique and perhaps a little confusing, not really. You only see that if you look at the actual grad handbook online. So yeah, I want to put that out there in case folks were like, if I don't work with this person, this will be a problem. If you get a different first year mentor, that doesn't mean you can't work with that person or establish them as your advisor. So yeah. Any other questions? Okay, here's one. Dr. Lee mentioned that the grad app committee accepts students holistically as a cohort versus grad students working directly with a primary advisor. Could you tease out the difference? Oh, okay. No, this is yes. Okay. So the graduate committee thinks holistic as a cohort. So that is the same. Let's choose Dr. Lana Lopez as an example. If we're not going to take in 5 people that all want to work with one advisor because no one's going to get the advising that they need, right? So we're not going to take in 5 students that are exactly the same, that want to work with the same person and do the same kind of work. The holistic piece is really thinking about a cohort. If you look at the previous graduate students we've already taken in, you can see a range of scholarship, a range of folks. And so from both a labor perspective, we don't want one person carrying all of the service work. A lot of it is labor that's not acknowledged by the university in the same kind of way as other things like publishing or even teaching. And so we think holistically of a cohort in that way. But for each one of the folks that you're assigned to, there's no one that we're going to assign as a first year mentor and that person's kind of like, meh. It's someone that's like, that's a cool project. I support that. I would want to work with them. So we want to find ways. You could have a really beautiful project And if we don't feel like we have the faculty to support that project, it's really hard for us to accept you. We don't want to do anything where we accept someone and then we can't support the work that they want to do. And so establishing that there is someone, and hopefully multiple someones, that can help and support the project that you want. You have to tell us how you envision that work being supported in your statement of purpose. We'll have the conversation, but ideally we have folks where I think we can have two folks that are supported by the same person. We have a few faculty members that aren't advising anyone right now, so they could definitely advise multiple people. But it's always good to ask if you have any doubt or want to know if someone's taking on new students, you can absolutely send them an email, because I think it's really smart to think about, let's say you have two people you'd like to work with and you reach out and one of them's like, I'm not taking any students, I'm about to go on sabbatical or something like that. You might want to think about maybe having the other person that you feel like would be great for your work. Maybe you're listing them knowing that the other person, when they come back from sabbatical, would be someone you put on your qualifying exams committee, for example. So you can always reach out to faculty. They know that y'all are out here looking at application stuff, looking at their profiles, reading their work. So it's really helpful to say, hey, I read your work. You make me think about these XYZ things. I'm interested. Are you taking on students for next year? You can always ask that question. So we think both in terms of grad students working with someone, but you get to choose who your advisor is, but thinking about similar interests. Who's doing work at these intersections that can support this project? And then you want to think about, like, holistically, we don't want to have 5 folks working with Dr. Raza, right? Who's a junior faculty, right? And amazing. So we wouldn't take 5 folks thinking about immigration and the law. Or we would think about various ways that maybe Dr. Lim Fujiwara could support their work as someone that also studies immigration. So thinking about that holistically is about how can we support everyone and also make sure faculty aren't overwhelmed where they're not able to give the one-on-one attention that students deserve. Okay, long-winded answer, but I hope that answered it. Anything else? What else? Okay, okay. The 5 whys for the statement of purpose, absolutely. And if I'm really good here, I will even pop them up. Maybe that's not possible, but I will read them here. Why the U of O? Why IRES? Oh, I can do this. I can do this. Let's do it like this. Okay. I will drop it into the chat here. Why the University of Oregon? Why IRES? Why our department specifically? Why ethnic studies as a field? What you'll study and who you'll work with. So I'm gonna just post it there so folks can see it. Now, there's no need to do it in that order at all, but just kind of thinking about, I was thinking like, or, thinking about maybe U of O could also be a question of like space and place if you're doing research on the Pacific Northwest. Why IRES could be about faculty, could be connected with that, who you'll work with. So these are just kind of broad questions. You might answer IRES and ethnic studies together. What you'll study might be impacted by some of these other questions as well. So those are my takes on kind of like the big body questions that I would hope to know. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you. Okay. Great questions. Okay, here's another one. Callie says, what is the average length of time it takes to receive a decision on your application? This has not been answered. This is a great question. Okay, easiest way to think through how to distill this process. Okay, so applications are due December 1. We will, as our grad committee, the admissions committee will meet first. We'll go through all the applications. We'll make a short list. We'll present that short list to the entire department, who will then look at everyone on the long list and short list if they'd like, but they're only required to look at the short list. And then we'll try to get as early of a decision as possible because we also want to have everyone come out for a visit. And so to get everyone's flights set up, hotels, all those things, we know other folks are weighing other places and decisions. So we're really aiming, hopefully in February, to have those out as soon as possible, because there's also additional funding we can apply for to kind of add more money on top of that, the earlier we have those decisions. So I'm going to say February. And so that, to me, our goal is just over 8 weeks from the deadline to having a decision for the initial cohort. If you don't hear early on, that does not mean that we are not accepting you. We wait to hear responses from other folks before we reach out to our wait list. So we establish the baseline and the wait list. You will understand if you're on the wait list pretty early as well, so you can kind of know how to plan things. But our goal is to get as many folks to say yes, and also get them to Eugene to get FaceTime with faculty, to get their bearings, to look at housing if they'd like. We really want to give folks that opportunity as early as possible within what we call the winter term, before we get into spring term, which for us starts late March going into April. Great question. Anything else? I'll give folks a little bit if folks want to type or unmute. Otherwise, again, this is recorded. It will be listed, and I will make sure everyone gets a copy if they need. If there's something you want to return to later, you can absolutely do that. And I'll also include with that a link to the slides as well. They're on Canva. So I want to make sure if folks want to return to any of that stuff, they can as well. If it's helpful, if there are any other links you find useful, the GTFF stuff is all readily online, as is our grad handbook. You can find that on the IRES website as well, a PDF version. If you kind of want to see what students receive, extra information, it may be more than you require at this time, but hopefully also helpful as well to kind of get a sense of what the department is about. Okay. With that, I'll wrap us up here. It's been fantastic. Thank you for all of your amazing questions. I'm here if you need me. Please feel free. If I haven't reached out and talked to you yet, I'm here if you run into any questions, technical questions. I may not be able to fix the app, but I will reach out to someone and figure out what's going on with application stuff. There's plenty of great folks. And if you've reached out to Emily, our graduate coordinator, or Finn, they're also really, really fantastic folks who can help with some of the more administrative side of things. So thank you so much. I hope this is useful and helpful. I hope I haven't thrown too much at you. And I'm really excited to read more about all of you and your work. If you choose to apply to the U of O and to IRES, we would love to have you. So thank you for this. Have a good one, and I'll see you hopefully soon. Bye, y'all.